Record now.
Um, all right. Hello everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. The vibes that I bring to the table. If you don't know me, I'm a medical student on the path to radiology. I'm 30 years old, and apart from being a medical student, I'm also a medical writer. I write for a couple of founders, organizations globally. And today is a very amazing day. Um, I invited a professional here, an outstanding guest today. Hey, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, Ransom. Yes, my name is Amruti Borad, and I am a family physician in San Diego, California. And I also coach medical students and train physicians on preventing and treating burnout. How do you practice medicine in a way that feels fulfilling? And how do you successfully go through all the transitions that you might be going through as a medical health professional? And I met Ransom randomly on LinkedIn. I'm very impressed by all the things that he's doing. So I feel very honored that I get to be one of his guests.
Thank you so much, Barad. Okay, so as a medical student, I know what we face, right? In the community. And could you tell us how do we medical students just brief us how we can just you know try to strive to ease up burnout because we face burnout so much, right,
Yeah.
amongst medical students. And how do we try to cure, that means that word, cure burnout amongst medical students globally?
Yeah, so great question. A big question I think we're all still trying to solve. I think part of it, just because I know you're coming from Nigeria and doing some research on the area and what's going on there, I realize that we have to be cognizant of what's actually going on in the region that each student is in, right? What country you're in, what part of the country you're in, that has a lot to do with it to begin with. And there are 9 million doctors in the world, and there's about a million in the US, and only 30,000 from the data that I found in Nigeria. And a lot of doctors are leaving Nigeria for the UK and the US and other places because they don't have the support, they don't have the right wages, security is an issue. And, if you're not meeting someone's basic needs, food, water, shelter, security, and this goes for your patients, but even for your physicians, especially the security part of it, it's really hard. And it's going to contribute to your burnout. But for students in general, like the first thing is, why are students burning out in the first place? So you need to figure that out first. And generally speaking, I think the top three reasons are: one, when you start in a medical profession and school, you have so many things that you have to do in such little time. And so you're trying to figure out, how do I deal with this time scarcity? The second thing is financial. You're going into debt, and how do a lot of students just don't have the financial knowledge. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how they're going to pay for it. It really affects what specialty they choose. And I didn't know much about that when I was a student, so that's a problem. And then relationships, all of your relationships are going to change. So your relationships with your family, your friends, your spouse, your significant others, and then even you're developing all these new relationships, your new colleagues, your attendings, the resident, like people that you're working with. So that's something to keep in mind, is that those are the most common reasons why students burn out. But you also have, mindset is huge. You're constantly being given feedback. So a lot of students feel like they're not good enough. Am I going to make it? They're trying to be a perfectionist. They're hyperachievers. You might be working with doctors who, are burnt out themselves. And then there's a whole other piece of mental health. So if you're coming into school with mental health diagnoses and substance abuse or suicidal thoughts, attempts, that burnout is going to make that worse. But burnout can also cause those things to happen. And then you're looking at your specific region. So in Nigeria, there's a lot of strikes. There's a lot of rescheduling of lectures. Remote learning can be very difficult because in some places you don't have the infrastructure for technology. So all of these things are going to contribute to a student being susceptible to burnout. Just so many things. It's just too much at once. So I didn't mean to not answer your question. So to answer your question, you first need to recognize what burnout is. Like, what does it look like? So that's really the first step. So what does burnout look like? Well, there's something called Maslow's triad of burnout. And so the first part is emotional exhaustion, where someone feels they're putting in so much effort and they're not seeing anything happening. And that might look like I'm drowning. How am I going to do all of this? Right. And that's very common with students. Right. The next one is the sense of lack of accomplishment. So you start to develop this low self esteem. You think, I'm not good enough for this, or I don't feel good enough for this. And that just spirals. And then the last piece tends to be something we call depersonalization. So that's when you start to be negative and cynical and you say, why does it matter anyway? Like nothing I do matters anyway. Sometimes you become unprofessional. And that tends to be like the last thing that people go through because we all go into medicine initially because we really want to help other people. So to go from that to I don't care anymore, right? That's a huge difference. And it's because you're feeling burnt out. So that's how you recognize it. How do you prevent and treat it, like you're asking? Um, so the first step is asking for help. And that is very hard for most people. I think that's the hardest step. So who do you ask for help? So most people will ask their friends, their family, um, they'll go to their colleagues next, and then the last people they ask is their university because people are afraid, and they also know that they just don't want to get in trouble. There's just like this thing of like, am I going to get in trouble? Am I going to get kicked out of school? But most universities now, at least in the U.S., many of them offer mentoring and therapy. Those are the two most common. And mentoring is it's been around forever. It exists everywhere. And that's really, working with a doctor or, one of your peers who's ahead of you, who has experience in medicine. And it's very development driven. They want to advise you, they want you to get from medical student to physician. Therapy is different. It's very emotion focused. It's going back in time and thinking like, how are my emotions affected what I'm doing? And then there's coaching, which is relatively new in medicine. I mean, it's not a new concept, but it's something new that we've been talking about since the pandemic happened more prevalently. And coaching is really the way I like to describe it is just collaborating with somebody who helps you get clear on what your goals are in life, whatever they may be. And it's really me asking you a lot of questions and having you come up with the answers because you have the answers. It's just when you're so stressed out and so burnt out, you don't know that. And so the point is for someone to help get that, from you to help you. And so in coaching, there's a lot of studies when we talk about trained physicians because that's been such a big focus. But there's also, when you look at the studies for students, there's also quite a lot of studies for students. And I think three of the things that really show is one, it really empowers people, it will empower students. I think the other thing is that it um, essentially it allows you to separate a personal identity from a professional identity. People don't think about that. They confuse the two things. And, I did that myself when I burnt out because I put so much weight on whatever happens at work is equals my sense of self-worth, right? You can't do that. If you do that, you're just it's a recipe for disaster. So really understanding the two difference between the two and developing the two are very important, and coaching has helped with that. And then the other thing that's really helped with is with students, it's teaching you how to be adaptive. Like, how do you be this adaptive learner? And and that's going to serve you for your entire medical career. You need to be able to keep up with the way things are changing. I mean, now we have AI. There's always the next big thing, and you want to keep up because the whole goal is that you are utilizing and learning new research and new technologies to help your patients. So coaching can really help with that. And I think the step after that is, okay, well, now I asked for help. I got the help that I need. But then how do I sustain that? Like, what happens? Is that it? Like, what do I do next? So the next step is really thinking about what do I do as a student versus what do I do as a system? And a trap that we fall into a lot is, all of us are stressed and a lot of us are burnt out. And so you start blaming other people, right? You blame the system, and the system has a lot of faults everywhere. Okay. That's just, it's natural. It's what's happening and it's known. Um, but if you just sit there and say, well, the system has to change, I mean, that's going to take a long time. Systems take years and years and years to change. And you don't want to separate yourself from the system. You are part of that. So if you do something today, you are making a difference, right? It's just like you are a human being on this planet. You cannot separate yourself from the planet. It's all connected. So what I like to remind students is, one, you really want to work on your mindset, because that's a huge part of how if you will succeed or not. And I used to think mindset was just hippie talk. I didn't think it was important at all. And I learned that very late in my career how important that was. So I want students to know that it is very important, and it will help you move forward much faster. And that's really what we call like developing this growth mindset, that you're not born with your skills. You can develop your skills. And when you're thinking about challenges that you have, you really want to embrace those challenges. You want to look at feedback that you get, which you probably get a lot of as a student. Feedback is not criticism, but what can I learn from this? You want to learn from your other students that are successful. It's normal to feel envious, but you need to kind of funnel that energy into thinking like, oh, well, how did this person get so many good grades, right? Like, just as a simple example, what can I learn from them? And all of those things will lead to this sense of what we call free will or autonomy. And I've noticed that students and attendings, or trained physicians, they tend that's kind of the overlap, is that they want to have that freedom, and they want to have that autonomy that gives them a sense of purpose. Okay, so that's like a mindset piece. And really, how do you do that is when you think about a challenge, well, first you want to think about, what have I done up until this day that I'm proud of? And you use that energy to say, okay, I'm proud of myself, but so now how do I get better? Okay. And how do I get better? Well, you have to be curious about what happened. Why did I fail this test, or why did I have this fight with this person? And really think about, like, what was your responsibility in that piece? And then the next step is really, well, what was the gift in this challenge? And if I have this challenge, like, is it really going to matter 20 years from now? Like, how much power am I giving away to the circumstance, right? If I failed a test, I've failed tests. Does it matter to me now? Absolutely not. It's one thing, right? And then once you clarify all of that in your mind, then you can figure out, okay, what is the next step I can take? And so that's all mindset related. And then when we're talking about, well, what are practical things that you can do as a student today? So one thing that you can do is like you're doing, Ransom, which is you're part of national organizations, you're part of local organizations that are advocacy groups, and you're really picking like what you're passionate about and being part of that movement, because that's an even bigger way to change a system that's not working. The other thing you can do as a student, which you're also doing, is picking a social media platform and you don't have to pick like 10, just pick one platform that you can develop a professional identity on, and get really good at it and build these networks, because it will open your mind to all these new ideas. It will keep you informed, and it will allow you to think, okay, like when I'm done with school, and I know in Nigeria you do the housemanship and sometimes you'll do the youth service corps, but when you're done with that, and if you're able to, like, what are you going to do next? It's not just I have to work in this clinic, right? Or this hospital. There's so much you can do, so much impact you can make as a physician. And you want to do it in the way that you want to do it. And the only way to figure that out is networking and seeing what's out there. So I think that's really important. And then writing. I mean, you do medical writing, but just writing in general, people think, well, I have nothing to say. You always have something to say. You're a unique individual. You have unique experiences. So just write and post, right? It's like the hardest thing to do. Some people like to do videos. I didn't get into going on camera until this year. I just love to write. So it's whatever that's good for you. And then, being a leader in one of your organizations at school, and pick something that you're really interested in and pick one. Don't try to be the treasurer of 10 different groups. You're just trying to pick one and be really good at it and be passionate about it. And then supporting each other. Teamwork is so, so important. You will learn that as a working physician. You will learn how important teamwork is. And the sooner you support each other and learn that concept, the better it will be for you. And then the last part is a system. So how do you change a system? In Nigeria specifically, I think the heart of the problem is your trained doctors are leaving. And so you really need to figure out, how am I going to make sure that my doctors are safe, make sure that they're supported, make sure they have good salary, like good wages. According to the World Health Organization, you really should have one doctor per 600 patients. In Nigeria, it's one doctor per 5,000 patients. It's just not possible. Okay. And, I had also read something recently that they were trying to pass a law in Nigeria where once you're done with your training, you're required to stay in the country and practice for 5 years. I don't know if that anything is going to come of that, or if anything came of that, but also side like creating all these restrictions on your doctors, they're not going to be able to make the impact that they need. So I think and even in the US, I think the focus needs to be that as well, because that all that trickles down to your students. But the other things that you can do is like diversify your leadership, support your leadership to support your students, bring in therapy, coaching, mentoring, and actually creating a sustainable like mentorship program or a coaching program. And then thinking about the curriculum, like what things can we take out, what things can we add, having this infrastructure for technology. If you're not keeping up with technology, you're already behind, right? So how do we get that there? And then thinking about, okay, how many med students are we admitting, and how many trainees do we have, or how many doctors are we actually generating or producing, and kind of having a balance between those things. And then just supporting everybody that's involved in the system, essentially. So that's how I like to think about recognizing burnout, asking for help, and then how do I move forward with this process.
Man, that was mind blowing.
Sorry, no, that was a lot.
So many things in my head right now. Like you finished everything. Like you nailed everything. Like from head to the tail, you nailed everything. I think you should go ahead with the presentation. Like you made me speechless. Like I don't know what to say again. Like this is amazing. Like this is full of information. Like this was gonna really help me not only me, the other medical students out there, and also medical professionals already in the training. And this is amazing. This is amazing. Thank you so much for this. Thank you so much. I
Oh,
think I think you've made me speechless right now. Just go ahead with the presentation.
well, I wanted to ask you, it is what I because in terms of Nigeria, that's what I said was just based off of me reading, and I'm curious to hear from you if what I'm saying resonates with you, or if there's other things going on that you've noticed with yourself and your colleagues in terms of what kind of help you need or what kind of problems you have in Nigeria specifically.
Well, well, I love the fact that you said something about passing the law. About the reason about that. I'm going to start there. Is because of the high migration, right? Too many doctors are leaving Nigeria to migrate to another country, especially the US, the UK. So there is a scarcity of doctors in Nigeria, like the radiographers or radiologists or any kind of medical specialties.
Mhm.
There are scarcities in Nigeria about all those medical professionals. So that's the reason why they're trying to like pass a law, and you're gonna have to work for like 5 years for you to get your like license for you to migrate or something. So that's one of the
Yeah.
problems, and but there is a side effect, you know,
Mhm.
on that particular law they want to pass. There's a side effect. It's kind of like a restriction amongst the medical professionals out there. For me, once I graduate, you know, done with my studies as a radiologist, I'm gonna like love to practice in Nigeria like a
Mhm.
few years before I migrate. Yeah, because I would love to work in London. You know,
That's great.
from there, yeah, from there we'll move on. But everything has a disadvantage. Everything has an advantage.
Mhm.
But there is an advantage there because um for instance, you go into hospitals out there, you will notice that one doctor, like you said, one doctor handing over 1,000 plus patients, making patients be, waiting, delaying things.
Mhm.
And that's because of the scarcity of, doctors. And the problem is not about passing the law about that 5 years or something. Like, it's kind of like weird. The one thing is, as a government in Nigeria, you need to provide amenities in terms of healthcare. The present government in Nigeria right now, they don't really value education. They don't really value healthcare and other, amenities, right? During my studies in my secondary school, I did civic education. That's one of the subjects I did in my secondary school before I joined into university. The first, as a government, the first duty for you to do to protect the citizens and their properties and everything, to provide them and help make sure that you're there for them. But looking at the situation right now, I think the government has really failed. They've really failed, and that's part of the problems,
Yeah.
amongst the medical field. You know, I've done my clinicals when I was in year two. My second year in med school, I did my clinicals in the university in the hospital,
Mhm.
like a teaching hospital that is affiliated with my school, that teaches medical students, right?
Yeah.
But I noticed that, I noticed that there were, foreign medical doctors I was seeing there. You know, there were not many Nigerian doctors there. In the hospital I worked, as a, you know, as a, a medical student. What does that imply? That implies that the foundation in my country, the healthcare foundation is kind of like leaking. It's
Yeah.
very poor.
Mhm.
So there are too many problems to talk about, but I'm gonna just focus on medical aspects, right? And also the government is not really informed in education that university can have the capacity to provide equipment that we need, to do ourselves are very fit, because we, the radiography students, right? Our what's it called? Our equipment are really very expensive, really very expensive, very very expensive, and our university can't provide such equipment, all of them, because of the very very expensive. So that's why we're affiliated with a teaching hospital, a federal teaching hospital, you know,
Okay.
for us to, for them to teach us, with the medical students, right?
Yeah.
So I think the government is really messing up. I must be very true with you. They're really messing up, and if they can really try to at least provide major core, needs of, amongst the citizens, that would be very helpful because medical, when you talk about medical, you talk about lives, right? You need to pay absolute attention to, what we're doing. That's why passing through medical school is not that easy because you're dealing with lives. That's why I
Yeah.
give of my studies. I give 100% priorities over my studies because I need to know what I'm doing. Because if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm gonna kill lives. Many lives are in my hands right now. So that's why I say, hey, this is my life. I need to do this. I have to know what I'm doing, not just to pass exams, have good grades, or come out with first class. These are amazing, but you need to also, I need to also know what I'm doing. Once I'm in the field of practice, I should also, deliver and not make mistakes, So as being a Nigerian medical student, there are problems attached. But that's when you talk about mindset, how there are two types of mindset. You have the fixed mindset and you have the growth mindset, right? The fixed mindset, like a business or a corporation. For instance, Nigeria as a whole, the environment in Nigeria is not inhibiting, like it's not a place to, you know, we the medical students, it's not that inhabitable for us to, keep moving. But that's where the growth mindset comes in, where you don't allow the environment, drag you backwards. The disadvantages, you see environment, you don't allow, okay, I'll speak for myself. I don't allow the environment to make me a disadvantaged medical student. That's why I try to push. I try to read because I do a whole lot of researches every day. I do a whole lot of researches, and
Yeah.
that really opened me, to many things I should know or I shouldn't know. I do a whole lot of things. Like I can deviate from my specialty. I can move into pharmacology. I can move into ophthalmology. It doesn't just like pick one or two things. So that's part of research. I don't let the environment drag me backwards. That's why I try to like orchestrate my mindset to be really accurate in things I do. So yeah, I think I can just stop here for now.
Yeah, no, I mean that's thank you for sharing all that insight about what's going on at home for you. And there's two things that you said that I think are really important, and one of them is that you can't let the environment hold you back, right? That's your environment is something that as a student you're not able to change. And I will be honest, I mean, sometimes that circumstance is something that has to change for things to get better, but that can take time. It's really about what you think about your situation. And so that's what you're doing, is that you're not letting it hold you back. You know that it's there, you know that it's frustrating and it contributes to your burnout. But then you decide, like, okay, I know that this is there, but how am I going to make this better, right? For yourself, for your patients, for other students, for future generations. So that's really important to understand. And then something else that you said that a lot of students don't have, they just don't think about, is that the purpose of medical school is not just pass my tests, and get my degree, right? It's so much more, like you said, you have to know how to take care of people. You have to know what you're doing. And when we say know what you're doing, that means a lot of things. You really want to learn how to be independent. You want to be able to continuously learn what you need to learn. You want to create a flexible working environment for yourself, and balance between, okay, I need to balance between caring for other people and caring for myself. So the purpose of school is just so beyond just tests. And you probably know that because you're so involved in other groups, and you do other kinds of things that are related to medicine, but not just like your day-to-day structure. So again, something to encourage your own colleagues to do if they're not doing it already. So yeah, I mean, you have so much going on, and I think about the U.S. and sometimes I feel, I just take it for granted, like the basic things that we have. So it's really important to be grateful for what you have as well, I think.
Exactly, exactly. I love the way you summarized everything. Like you summarized everything. That's amazing. Like that's really amazing, you know. I think all those we've said, I think the audience is gonna like resonate with this, especially the medical students and also the medical professionals out there. They will definitely learn something from this. Um, the last question before you proceed with your presentation is, as a physician you are right now, what are the challenges you faced or you're facing, and how did you okay, let's talk about your past. How did you conquer the challenges you faced whilst in school, you do your housemanship, your residency and stuff like that? How did you ace that challenge? And also, what are the problems you're facing right now, and how you trying to tackle the current challenge you have right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't consider it as like acing. I don't know if I aced my, my medical career and education, but yeah, certainly. So, in the US, the general path that you take is the 4 years of undergrad, so college, 4 years of college, and then 4 years of medical school. But you have a path that you can choose where you do 3 years of college. And so I chose that path. I knew I wanted to be a doctor very early on. And so the beginning of my journey was a little different than most of my colleagues. So I did 3 years of college. I went to medical school for a year, and then I came back to graduate college. And then I did the rest as everybody else would in the US. But with all of those times, I think it was really my mentors, to be completely honest. It was my mentors that really kept me going because I would kind of go to the brink of being burnt out before I'd even ask for help. So I think if I did have coaching when I was that young, I would have asked for help a lot sooner. But I eventually got to the point where I asked them for help, and they kind of helped me with strategies about how to keep going. So I probably burnt out, like really burnt out in residency. But I think there were stages in college and in medical school where I was feeling it. I think one time, at least one time in med school, I thought about leaving. It was my third year, so I was almost done. But I thought about going back to education, but teaching like kindergarten or elementary school students. And I just sent an email to one of my mentors, and they were confused and said, no, no, wait, you're almost done, what are you doing? And kind of said, if you're almost done, you can teach at a university level, you can teach at a medical school, like there's so many things that you can do. And it's just something that she said in that one email that made me think like, okay, yes, I just need to keep going. And when you're a student, so I think as a student, you're just so excited when you start, and you have this mission, and you have that drive. And I had that drive, and I really didn't burn out, and really, really burn out until residency. And in residency, it was really the support that I had from like my family and my colleagues that helped me get through that part. And then as an attending, I never thought I would burn out. Like I was very happy. I was so excited. I was teaching at UCLA, which is an academic institution here, and teaching students and just really enjoying my practice. And then I moved to San Diego and still enjoying my practice. Went into a lot of different leadership positions, and that brought a whole new level of purpose for me. But COVID, really caused me to burn out the first time, and I burnt out again later on after that. And I don't know if COVID never happened, would I have burnt out? I'm not sure. I can't answer that question. But it was just the volume became so much. And during that time, like just this was only like 2 years ago or a year ago, I decided to work with a physician coach who helped me navigate, being an effective leader and then figure out like, do I want to stay in medicine? Because that was another, I've had that thought again, is do I really want to keep doing this? And but in my heart, I knew that I love clinical medicine. I didn't want to leave. It's just, I just didn't know what I was doing. So she kind of helped me think about, okay, well, it sounds like you want to stay in medicine. How will you make it work for you? So
Amazing.
I had to admit to my burnout as a leader, which was very hard for me. And I was able to go part-time. And I went out there and I looked for places that support leaders who are part-time because I think that you're more effective that way. And resigned from my position. And then towards the end of that resignation, I was offered a position to work in a concierge practice at the same organization. And it just seemed like the right fit for me. And if you don't know what concierge medicine is, it's really just, we had in the US, we have insurance. So we take insurance and then you charge like a fee to be able to take very good care of your patients in the sense of, we can communicate with them very regularly. So this ended up being like a very good way for me to practice medicine. It's taking care of fewer patients. They're more complex, but you have the time to help them. And you have the support to help them, right? You have a whole team. We're talking about teams a lot, but you have a whole team to support them. And that has, because I was able to be in this kind of practice, not only do I feel fulfilled again, I feel like I'm making a difference for my patients, that they're very well, oh, sorry, they're very well cared for. Um, I also had the opportunity to become a coach myself, certify as a coach and help other students and trained physicians navigate this through the same things that I'm going through. So if I had to summarize, how did I actually get through medical school to today? It really was my mentors and it was my coach. And the coaching taught me about my mindset. And so changing my mindset and constantly thinking like I'm so aware now of the thoughts that I have that do not serve me. And so when I have those thoughts, I am now so aware of what I can replace those thoughts with. And it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it's been how long since I've been, it's been like 15 years, I think. But essentially it's just a work in progress. But when I really look at it, it is my support system and learning the right way to think that allowed me to succeed and my version of success. Yeah.
Amazing. Like your story is really amazing, Brad. Like really, really amazing. Like, but I want to say something.
Yeah.
There's something I picked from your story. These are two words I noticed: coach and mentors. Okay, coaches and mentors. So, okay, probably there are medical students that are gonna watch this video and they don't have mentors, they don't have coaches. So how do they go about getting a mentor, or is it is it like what word will I use right now? Is it necessary for medical students to have a coach or a mentor? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so is it necessary? I mean, I personally think so because it just helps you. Um, it essentially, a mentor, and most schools have mentorship programs. So does your school have a mentorship program itself? Your school specifically?
Not really, not really.
Okay. So, if your school doesn't have a mentor, so a mentor again is somebody who is a physician who's gone through something that, has gone through the process like you have, and they're there to guide you and really develop your skill, help you develop your skills to go from medical student to whatever your goal is. Usually, becoming a physician and working. Um, so if you don't have that at school, there's different ways that you can do it. I mean, you can actually create your own mentorship program amongst your students, right? So all of know that you guys are, for you, it's like the 6 years of college, right? So, and you're all together. For us, it's the 4 years of med school. So you can work together and form peer support groups where it's really like a first year's paired with a second year student, or you're paired with someone who's above you in some format, and they mentor you. So that's a way that you could get around that. The other thing is seeking out mentors. So if you of course work with doctors, like trained physicians, so sending out emails to them or figuring out how to contact them, and learning like, okay, oh, this person's a orthopedic surgeon and I want to be an orthopedic surgeon, and reach out to them. I have a lot of students that do that with me through the university, or through like their college, and they'll reach out to me through email saying they're looking for a mentor. Or there's groups in school, different groups that will reach out to physicians at our university and ask like, hey, do you want to be part of our mentorship program? Do you want to be a mentor to these students for certain things? So there are ways to get around it if your school doesn't have the structure for it. And then you can ask your school, right? How can I build a mentorship program here? Like, are there, can we ask some of the doctors that are teaching us, like some of our professors, or can we ask doctors in the community that may be willing to be mentors, working with your school to do that? Um, with coaching, it's very different. I mean, the coaching and mentoring overlap a lot, especially if it's like me as a physician coaching a student, right? I'm going to be a mentor where I'm going to advise you certain things because I've been through the experience. Coaching is more like, let me ask you questions. What do you want? How do I help you get there? Right. And so, coaching in schools, they've done it a lot of different ways. Some schools, they actually will train their teachers, their doctors, to be coaches, and then actually coach their students, and give them time to do that. Other schools will look out into the community. You have a lot of community physicians out there and train them to coach. And it doesn't have to be some elaborate, expensive coaching program, right? It can be something very simple and basic. And then they coach their students, so there's no like overlap or conflict of interest, privacy issues. These are community physicians that you're not working with every day that can help you, and they know what it's like to be a doctor, right? In the community, they're not working for a university. Um, and then there's schools that will hire coaches, like they'll hire coaches like myself, or they'll hire coaching programs, like people have created coaching programs to help their students. Some schools create coaching centers where it's like a bunch of people together, like you have psychologists helping, you have doctors helping, um, other healthcare professionals involved. And I think the psychologists can help a lot because they can run, they can do things like group mentorship or group coaching once a month on a specific topic. And, they have a lot of experience as well. There's so much overlap between the coach mentor therapy realm. So those are different ways that schools can incorporate coaching into their practice. And then the other way is students can find mentors or coaches is really social media. And I will say that trained physicians kind of live on LinkedIn. I know with students, I'm not sure what it's like for you, but students that I've noticed are more oriented towards like TikTok or Instagram, Facebook. And those are all good avenues too. Like you can meet people through that as well. It's just I feel like LinkedIn is considered one of the most professional social media platforms, and that really is where you're probably going to find these mentors. So that's another way that you can find people to talk to. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Amazing. Amazing. Like to summarize everything, asking questions is really the key to get coach or a mentor or whatever you want.
Yeah.
Questions is really yeah, questions is really applicable, you know. Thank you so much for I really amazing. Like I think every medical student should be on LinkedIn because it's really a place where you can get mentors and coaches because yeah, this is where to be very honest with you, that's where I got my own mentees, my own coaches,
Oh,
that
good.
coaches me. And yeah, one of my mentors is an interventional radiologist. He's a Nigerian based, he's a US based Nigerian American medical doctor who specializes in interventional radiology. That's kind of like a higher, you know, you
Mhm.
know, realm of in terms of radiography or anything relating to radiation sciences. Yeah, he's coaches and his mentors. His mentorship is really amazing. It's really impacting me as a an upcoming trainee in that field. And also, yeah, if you're a medical student up here, you don't have a LinkedIn, a well optimized LinkedIn profile, you should go ahead, download the app, create an account there, start networking. It's gonna help you. Yeah. So having said that, Barad, I think you should start up with the amazing presentation. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate having the opportunity to come and talk to your students. And you can always reach out to me. I'll give Ransom, I'll give you my website. You can send me general questions. If you're interested in coaching, you can always like schedule free consults. And I also have a survey that I've been kind of giving to students where it really helps me understand like what social media platforms you're on, what you're learning, how do you like to learn, do you like YouTube interviews like this or do you like newsletters? And it's just a way for me to understand how to meet the needs of a student. So you're welcome to share that with your students, and it's all anonymous if you want to respond to that. But I really hope that people gain something, just one thing from this presentation, and just know
Sure.
that all you need to do is stay on your own path and just take the next best step.
Amazing. Let's get to it.
Thank you so much.